In tonight's headlines, the government fails in its challenge against the acquittal of 7 opposition figures accused of organizing an unauthorized rally. The hospital authority says it's ready to deal with any rise in admissions this winter. And the Palestinian death toll mounts as Israel keeps bombing Gaza.
The Court of Appeal has rejected the government's bid to overturn the acquittal of 7 opposition figures accused of organizing an unauthorized assembly. Former lawmakers Lee Cheuk-yan, Leung Kwok-hong, Sid Ho, Albert Ho, Margaret Ng, and Martin Lee, as well as Apple Daily founder Jimmy Lai, were convicted of organizing and taking part in an unauthorized protest in August 2019. They were jailed for up to 18 months, but the sentences for Martin Lee, Ng, and Albert Ho were suspended. 3 months ago, the Court of Appeal cleared the defendants of organizing the protests, but upheld their conviction for participating. The Department of Justice then applied to take the case to the city's top court to look into the definition of organizing. But today, the Court of Appeal rejected the request. A 3-judge panel stated that the Court of Appeal had previously concluded that none of the defendants were shown to have organized the march. It has not been suggested to us that this court's approach, in particular as to the notion of organizing, departed from any other known authorities, the judges added. They also gave the defendants the green light to approach the Court of Final Appeal for answers to several legal questions. Lai was the only defendant to apply for cause, but his request was dismissed. The judges said he had clearly brought suspicion onto himself during the march, as he was a well-known figure. Maisie Mok, Cable News. Veteran opposition activist Koo Tzu-Yew has been detained by National Security Police, according to sources. Police did not mention a name, but said a 77-year-old man was arrested in Cheung Sha Wan on suspicion of attempting or preparing to carry out an act with seditious intent. Local media outlets quoting sources said Koo wanted to go to the Registration and Election Office in Cheung Sha Wan to protest against Sunday's district council polls, but he was arrested at his home.
The hospital authority says it is ready for a surge in admissions during winter. More than 5,500 people turned up in the emergency units of all public hospitals yesterday, while the occupancy rate of pediatric wards reached 97%. As this is the first winter after COVID and people are not required to wear masks, health authorities are increasing manpower and resources to combat potential threats from seasonal flu.
The medical ward is always in a high occupants. With all the measures together with the hospital command centers that helps to coordinate the patient flow, engagement of other parties, for example, community nurse, which may enhance the discharge process, so that we keep the best status in a more healthy and less congested conditions.
Apart from providing more beds, the authority's chief manager, Larry Lee, said hospitals might send patients to wards where demand is lower. To cope with an expected rise in illnesses, 18 general outpatient clinics will be open during the Christmas and Lunar New Year holidays. The authority says it is confident of handling a surge in cases after learning from its experience during COVID. Janice Yu, Cable News. A 65-year-old woman's Tai Chi routine was cut short when she was hit by BB gun pellets this morning. The victim was practicing in Homentin Park at 8 a.m. when she felt a sudden pain in her left leg and forehead. She spotted BB pellets on the ground and believed they were fired from an airsoft gun. The woman was treated at the scene. Police listed the incident as a complaint, but have made no arrest.
Images circulating on social media show dozens of Palestinian men detained by Israeli soldiers in Gaza. Palestinians who recognized the detainees denied Israel's claims that they belong to Hamas. An Arab newspaper said one of its correspondents was among the civilians who were rounded up and stripped to their underwear before being taken on trucks to an undisclosed location. This came as Palestinians mourned the growing number of civilians killed by Israeli airstrikes. The many residential buildings that were demolished included one in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis. Dozens of people were killed and many were trapped in the rubble. Many of those dead and injured were women and children. An Israeli ground offensive in the same city also claimed lives. Ambulances ferried the injured to hospitals which are packed beyond capacity. More than 17,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's military offensive, which began 2 months after a Hamas raid on southern Israel left 1,200 people dead and 240 taken as hostages. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made his strongest criticism of Israel so far, saying there's a gap between Israel's stated intention to protect civilians and the rising casualty toll. Sachin Katwi, Cable News.
Winter has arrived in Gaza, adding to the misery of more than 2 million Palestinian civilians whose homes were destroyed by Israel's offensive. Already suffering from shortages of food, water, and medicines, displaced Palestinians now find themselves without warm clothes or heat. The risk of epidemics is increasing, and people are desperately trying to find places where they can be safe.
One of the constant questions you get asked here is, where is safe? People move from the north of Gaza into the southern part of Gaza. Now there's fighting in Khan Yunis. People are being pushed even further south. And so the question that's being asked by everybody is, what next? If the fighting comes to Rafah, where do we go?
Expectations that Japan's long era of negative interest rates is finally coming to an end have pushed the yen to its highest level against the US dollar in nearly a year. A day after appreciating by nearly 4% against the greenback, the Japanese currency gave up some gains, finishing the week at 144 to the dollar. Still, it was the fourth weekly rise for the yen. The markets are looking ahead to a Bank of Japan meeting in 11 days' time, when policy rate changes are expected. The currency appreciation hit Japanese stocks, with the Nikkei falling 1.7% today on fears that a stronger yen will hurt exports.
Insurance Authority Chairman Stephen Yu said the sector benefited this year from mainland visitors.
New office premiums of long-term business surged by 31% to US dollars 18.8 billion in the first 3 quarters of this year, compared with the same period in 2022. This trend is largely driven by demands accumulated over the past 3 years when passengers' movements was effectively curtailed.
Speaking at the Asian Insurance Forum today, Yu said the establishment of service centers in mainland cities to support residents who purchased insurance policies in Hong Kong is at a very advanced stage. He added that the Insurance Authority will do its best to facilitate the progress.